All historians, they know that the Middle East region was only looking for the spark, because we have this before in Eastern Europe, in Latin America in the 80s, in Eastern Europe in the 90s, where everything started in Poland, then Czechoslovakia, and ended in Romania, Bulgaria, and all of that. This is what Huntington called the third wave of democratization. And the fourth wave of democratization, the color revolutions in Ukraine, in Lebanon, in Georgia. It was a matter of time before that arrived to the Middle East, because you have very educated middle class, a very educated young generation who are open to the social media, who are open to the new revolution in technology. And of course, when they compare what's happened, what's going on in other countries and what they are going in their own countries, a lot of disappointment and frustration. Then it was a matter of time and the way when the spark will start and when the revolution will erupt. This is why it was started in Tunisia, where Mohamed Bouazizi set himself fire, and no one expected that's what will happen in Tunisia, will ended up with the most aggressive dictatorship regimes in Egypt, in Yemen, in Libya, and of course in Syria. The struggle started, but it was much more difficult in the whole Arab region than in other regions, in Latin America or in Eastern Europe, because the nature of the authoritarian regimes in the Middle East, more aggressive and more authoritarians. We see that the number of casualties been killed in Libya, in Yemen, and now of course the tragedy, it's what's going on in Syria. First, politics about dignity, how the way the security forces and Mukhabarat, they dealing with the citizens, with the people. Second, of course, there is economic reasons, where you have an economic crisis hit the whole region, with the most important thing, the higher percentage of the unemployment. You have in each Arabic country is different from other, but there is no less than 15%. Then you have also the demographic growing of all of these Arabic countries. They are very young societies. In Syria, as example, you have from 25 to 30, you have 58% of the Syrian population less than 30 years old. And that's the same in Egypt, in Tunisia, and all of that. All of these factors and conditions help in the Arab Spring to start it. In Tunisia was much easier because the role of the army, the national army, where you have very professional army who refuse to open or shoot own citizens, and stay away from politics and allowed for all the political parties to start the democratic process. In Egypt, the army was professional. He refused to open the fire on their citizens, but then he thought that he can play a role in the transition. The SCAF made a lot of mistakes in the transition process. In Syria and in Libya, it was the much worse, where you have very strong army, but it's not a professional. It's a family army. The army is made not to protect the people rather than to defend the Assad family. That's what happened, where the army is itself collapsed. Most of the officers and soldiers refused to open the fire, and they joined what's called the Free Syrian Army, and others who still loyal to the Assad regime, still fighting with the Assad regime. And we don't know when that will end, if there is no international support, where the Syrian people, they are pleading for international support, for the United States to take actions to implement the no-fly zone. and the safety zone. But unfortunately, the United States did not take any actions, and allowing this this struggle to go on and drag in, which left it, as I said, more than 35,000 being killed, more than 2.5 million displaced inside Syria internally, and more than 500,000 as Syrian refugees in neighboring countries.